Welcome to another episode of the Unitrans podcast. Today, we want to have a conversation about energy, fuel, and the logistics systems that quietly power Africa's economies every day. Fuel logistics play a critical role in enabling growth, mobility, and industrial activity across the continent. Joining us in the discussion today is Head of Operations Applications, Leonard Bosman, and GM of Freight, Louis Dale. Please tell us a bit about yourselves, gentlemen, and we look forward to discussing how customized innovation, smart logistics, and on-the-ground problem-solving are reshaping fuel delivery to be safer, smarter, and more resilient in diverse operating environments. So please tell us a little bit about yourselves and welcome to the show.
Welcome, morning everybody. Yes, thanks for having us. I'm Louis Dale. I'm in Freight Division and actually back in the Petroleum Division for virtually all of my career. Really, petrol is running in my veins these days. I've been in the business for 30 years. Yeah,
thank you for the time. I've been with Unitrans for 9 years now, within the exciting space of making sure that we solve problems adequately by implementing solutions that's making a difference from a day-to-day basis. Making sure that what we teach our users are actually being used on a daily basis to make sure that the trucks are safe on the road at the end of the day.
So to start us off, let's talk about fuel logistics. We know that fuel logistics operates in a high-risk, high-responsibility environment. Tell us, what makes fuel and energy supply chains uniquely complex in the African context?
Yeah, so when you really think about it, fuel logistics anywhere in the world comes with inherent risk just because of the product it carries and the nature of the product, and we need to transport that product across from point A to point B. What really sets Africa or the Southern Africa area that we operate at a little bit more different, or the increased complexities, is the geographical space. We operate far and wide areas, as well as the infrastructure varies from area to area to region.
Yeah, I think further to that, Louis summarized it well. At the end of the day, as soon as you get involved in borders, there's sometimes unique challenges that goes with it. Different custom procedures that comes with documentation templates that's required. Besides the complexity from a high risk perspective when it comes to the product itself, dealing with cross-border aspects are also sometimes difficult due to its unique challenges. You sit with traffic patterns that's different from what's happening in South Africa versus what's happening in Southern Africa. We're sitting with operational hours in certain areas. What's relevant in South Africa might not be relevant for what's happening in our neighboring countries, for an example. And it's important to factor that into account. Again, bringing safety on board and making sure that our drivers are safe within those operational parameters on a daily basis.
Tell us a bit about technology. How does smart logistics and last-mile fuel delivery technology support safety, reliability, and visibility across fuel supply chains?
If we look back at systems that we used to implement maybe 8-9 years ago, was sometimes, let's try it out, it's a nice-to-have system. That has transformed into critical systems. We can't operate a truck without it anymore. So I think that's validating what is required. How do you separate the must-have versus the nice-to-have? And I mean, we've seen examples where, probably 8-9 years ago, the question was always, where's my truck? That's transformed now into, please provide me with an ETA when this delivery will take place. But it all starts with the planning aspect. You can deliver technology as soon as your planning is right. And what we mean by planning is, making sure that, what driver is on the truck, what's my purpose for this delivery, loading point, offloading point. And once those fundamentals are in place, that's when you can, do the clever stuff in terms of predicting ETAs, keeping your customer informed of delivery patterns, et cetera. So, yeah, I think it's been an amazing journey. The way that Unitrans have also adopted technology, and making sure that not being reactive, something that's always you need to understand why it happened, and we've seen the transformation from being reactive, providing real-time data, but moving forward, it's going to be critical to prevent that from happening and to be predictable, ensure that we are reliable at the end of the day from an execution perspective.
So I'd add on to what Leonard says and talk about visibility and so forth on the live progress of the trip. So you know what the planning is for this trip. You know what needs to happen there. So you've got, can I say, delivery milestones. So you know, listen, on your various trips that you got for today for the specific customers, which could be multiple sites that you must deliver to. You can then track and say, listen, in your milestones, you have not quite reached them. You're actually quite a little bit behind. And that is where you need to make plans, and that's where the delivery controllers comes into play. And also you can see also by how many of those delivery milestones has already met right through the day. Other part that he says in terms of the safety aspect of technology that's employed, that has evolved over the years. A few years ago, stuff like autonomous emergency braking, it wasn't a part of the fleet. And in actual fact, today, a lot of the operators still do not apply or do not spec their vehicles with this latest safety packages. And those are critical items to make on-road transport absolutely safe, or safer than it was ever in the past. I mean, a simple example of autonomous emergency braking is accidents where you see other trucks is actually driving into still standing or slower traffic that is in front of them. This technology where drivers lose concentration actually helps them and say that there's no reaction from the driver, the alarms goes off, then the truck actually starts braking itself. And that is also improving the pedestrian safety as well. It picks it up, it realizes there's an obstacle, being a pedestrian, preventing that accident, reducing the speed at a dramatical level. Those kind of things saves lives.
So the human side of things, it's amazing that it seems like there still needs to be a balance between the human side of things and the technology side of things. Because we look at advanced telematics from a real-time data perspective, as Leonard mentioned. But tell us, where does technology genuinely add value? At the same time, where does human decision still make and play a critical role in the decision-making process?
I think the first step is to accept and to understand that the technology part is not a silver bullet. Meaning that don't expect to put a piece of hardware in or a GPS telematics unit in or a solution in or a system in that it will solve your problems. So I think that's the first step is to ensure that whenever there's a system, there needs to be quite a robust process around it. And the human in the loop has been very, very, very important to date to make sure that what we see coming out of the real-time data, I mean, we've got instances where our telematics might be providing us 100 to 150 data points every single second. Now, it's impossible to act on that, but the human has been quite important to understanding what lead indicators are important to separate almost the noise from the signals and to ensure that we act on signals and avoid the noise. So, that's a good example where we've seen is focus on your lead indicators that has a positive impact. And the human in the loop has been critical to that component. Yeah, I think we've got some awesome examples, where we've, again, making it stick, is making the technology stick, is to ensure that the user is always in the loop. That comes with standard operating procedures. What happens if this piece of data is telling me that? How do I need to act on that? And keeping all stakeholders involved is always important. We've seen examples where our truck is at maybe an offloading site. He can't offload due to whatever reason, and understanding what process needs to follow in order to make that happen is important. So, yeah, I think that's a good example of separating the technology from the adding value is ensuring that people is important to separate the huge amount of data, providing the patterns, understanding the patterns, and asking the critical questions going forward to ensure that we drive the right behaviors.
Yeah, if you look on smart technologies these days, in the past that you had the equipment on the vehicle actually give the data to the control centers. When in the past there was no such thing there. The smarter meters, electronic meters these days, they know exactly when you go to the gantry to load. You load multiple products, multiple compartments in the truck, and this meter knows exactly how much product is in every single compartment loaded and how much and what product that is. And with that capability, it also comes with efficiency improvements that you can actually do multi-host loading at the time. And with a higher flow loads, with the multi-host loading as well, the times absolutely decrease at the gantry, which absolutely just cuts that time down and brings time savings and ultimately improve your efficiency. And the same thing actually happens also at the forecourt when you're arriving in the forecourt. Now you can connect multiple hoses to the vehicle, and you can offload multiple products, multiple hoses at the very same time. And these meters are much more smarter. They do understand that, and they can actually track every liter that is delivered, where in the past it was a single hose, slow deliveries, and so therefore a combination of these items actually improves utilization for customers. But at the same time, it actually can do it also safely. You add crossover prevention to the systems as well. And what that really means is, with this added complexity of multi-host offloading, for argument's sake, it's easy to make mistakes by drivers, and they can connect to the wrong compartment. So if you want to offload diesel, but the compartment is a ULP loaded there, the truck, the meter, it knows this is what is in this tank or compartment. I'm lining up to a diesel tank, but I got ULP on it. It gives the driver an error there and says, no, I can't do this. And that's where the human interaction comes into the space there, where it needs to decide now, okay, I need to actually correct this, and I understand now what actually went wrong, and I can correct it and can proceed with delivery safely without having any issues there.
You got a winning formula there.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Amazing. Now, customization. Oftentimes, customization is spoken about as key in fuel logistics. How do tailored solutions help manage risk and enable more consistent outcomes in diverse operating environments?
The foundation is to understand the operational variabilities that goes around it. I mean, you can surely only customize once you understand all your operational variables. And in this industry, from a petroleum fuel perspective, I mean, the variables are many and they are complex. You know, we take a look at route variability. It's not as simple as point A to point B. You know, depending on your truck size, your vehicle configuration. So it's quite unique, complex, in order to separate that customization and making sure that, for an example, you know, this vehicle can only offload at this specific place, and to try and automate that to prevent human mistakes from happening. Different customer requirements comes up all the time. What works for customer A specifically might need to tweak to work for customer B, and it's important to keep on listening on those requirements. At the end of the day, Unitrans being such a pivotal player in this industry, you know, we've got the unique ability to tap into the brains of the guys that work for 30 years and to understand what we can customize specific solutions that will make a fit and drive sustainable change going forward, to create that sustainability of making sure that it lasts for a long time. You know, that's where you need to embed, and that embedding part takes time to customize around it. You can only do that once you understand the operational requirements.
Many moving parts. That's what I'm picking up from here.
Another example is more on the trucking side of it. So you've got like urban areas. It's far different from going to long distance mine deliveries. So urban areas, you've got smaller sites, you've got tank constraints, you've got cash flow constraints from customers. So basically what that means is we then work out with the customers what is the best solution for them. So then you will have the small trucks that will go to the smaller sites, but yet utilized across the board. And then you have the medium-sized trucks that can go into most of the sites, and then the larger truck that goes into the greater open space sites. So that is critical. That is done correct, because otherwise the vehicles that you specify for it could be very much underutilized in some circumstances, and that is not what you want. You want to use the fleet, and you want to work them and utilize their capabilities across the board 24/7.
Yeah, I think just to add on that to Louis' point, you know, an important aspect what we see going forward from our customizationist perspective is, you know, to stay relative of the day in the life of any human being. So whether it's an integrated solution with WhatsApp, because that's a common technology and communication tool, is how can we keep your standardized solutions fit for purpose within a fuel industry? How do you communicate your relevant updates through a common platform that has been adopted globally, like WhatsApp? Try and use that piece of technology and customize around it. There's not a lack of the system. It's not the That's not the problem. It's the lack of integrated systems at the moment, and possibly moving forward to communicate on an integrated matter through a platform that's been adopted successfully within the necessary control is to utilize that going forward.
Yeah, that will enhance the visibility of what product is on the truck, by what time it's going to arrive to the customer, and actually the customer can track and know exactly what time their vehicle will be there, and they can actually prepare the forecourt for that delivery. What that enables is there's no surprise when you arrive at the site and then all of a sudden now we must make now a decision. Listen, we can either enter the site, there's all of a sudden construction there, the vehicle cannot get in, this size vehicle cannot get in there, and they need to make a constructive decision then what to do. Either try and squeeze into the site and have problems, or redirect to another site.
But where have you seen where now collaboration, where it makes the biggest difference in terms of enabling a safer, more reliable, and more resilient fuel delivery system?
So one of them that is really making a massive difference is when customers start to decide to revamp their sites, to change the layout of the sites there. So that involves various organizations that can do the construction, the planning, and then also the transporters like us, where our customers and our driver trainers and engineers would actually go through the plans and actually say, trying to move filler points to different locations that's easy accessible, safer to access, and that also enables the vehicles or larger vehicles to enter the site safely. So therefore, increase the utilization and efficiency or the cost effectiveness to the delivery to that site. So for the long term, it pays off over a long time that comes from that.
Yeah, and just to add on, the way that technology has been used in the space has transformed quite dramatically. You know, how do we collaborate without knowing what's happening? You collaborate on the art of predictability. Almost is, this is what could happen in the next 6 hours based on history. And I think that's a very exciting phase to move into, is to use the amount of the big data that's available, is to transform that data into information, into patterns, to ensure that the coordination, that's again complex, many people involved, is a bit more automated and more predictable going forward.
So as these systems now evolve, because there's a lot of evolution in the system side of things, how can innovation in fuel logistics adapt to changing environments and requirements while still maintaining the safety, the reliability, and the continuity of supply?
Fundamentally, that will always stay the same, right? So basically what we have to concentrate on is to adapt our fleets to the new product mixes, to handle the different products, and it could also be multiple products as well on the same vehicle, and how do we execute on that? The other part would be to ensure that the system compliance standards are updated accordingly, because different product mixes, different requires is needed. And all of that has to include training and human competency in that, because obviously that is a key factor as well. Without humans, nothing will happen and it will not execute safely.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your input. We really appreciate it. Through this episode, we've learned that powering Africa's future depends on logistics systems that are not only efficient, but safe, adaptable, and fit for local realities. Thank you once again, Louis and Leonard. We really appreciate you unpacking how smart logistics enable reliable energy delivery behind the scenes. You've helped us to see that innovation and problem solving in fuel logistics play a vital role in making growth happen across the continent. In our next episode, we shift into another high-performance sector where precision and planning are critical. Stay tuned.